Good morning. Thank you all for being here, and I'm especially want to welcome U.S. Attorney Phil Talbert from the Eastern District of California. He's done great work on this important case. And another special welcome to Europol Director Robert Mark Wainwright, who traveled here from the Netherlands to be with us today to participate in this important case of which various countries around the world have participated. Rob, we appreciate you. We have a tremendous relationship with Europol. We work together on a daily basis with them, and this is the kind of activities and investigative work we must do in this day and age because crime knows no borders. Among other challenges, our great country is currently in the midst of the deadliest drug epidemic in our history. One American now dies of a drug overdose every 11 minutes, and more than 2 million Americans are addicted to prescription drugs. And today, some of the most prolific drug suppliers use what's called the dark web, which is a collection of hidden websites that you can only access if you mask your identity and your location. And it's called dark not just because these sites are intentionally hidden, it's also dark because what's sold on many of them, illegal weapons, stolen identities, child pornography, and large amounts of narcotics. Today, the Department of Justice announces the takedown of the dark web market AlphaBay. This is the largest dark market web place takedown in world history. An AlphaBay staff member claimed that this group serviced more than 40,000 illegal vendors, people who sell illegal products, for more than 200,000 customers. By far, most of this activity was in illegal drugs, pouring fuel on the fire of the national drug epidemic. Around the time of the takedown of this site, there were more than 250,000 listings for illegal drugs and toxic chemicals on AlphaBay. More than 2/3 of all listings on AlphaBay. As of earlier this year, 122 vendors advertised fentanyl, and 238 advertised heroin. And we know of several Americans who were killed by drugs on AlphaBay. One victim was just 18 years old when in February she overdosed on a powerful synthetic opioid which she had bought on AlphaBay. The drug was shipped right to her house through the mail. A little more than a week after her death, a victim in Orange County, Florida, died of an overdose from a drug bought on AlphaBay. And then there was Grant Seaver. He was only 13 years of age and a student at Treasure Mountain Junior High School, Utah, in Park City, Utah, when he passed away after overdosing on a synthetic opioid that had been purchased by a classmate on AlphaBay. The ability of these drugs to so instantaneously end these promising lives is a reminder to us of just how incredibly dangerous these synthetic opioids are, especially when they are purchased anonymously from dark places on the internet. And this is likely one of the most important criminal investigations of this entire year. I have no doubt of that. Make no mistake, the forces of law and justice face a challenge from criminals and transnational criminal organizations who think they can commit their crimes with impunity by going dark. This case, pursued by dedicated agents and prosecutors, says you are not safe. You cannot hide. We will find you, dismantle your organization and network, and we will prosecute you. I believe that because of this operation, the American people are safer. People around the world are safer from the threat of identity fraud and malware, and safer from deadly drugs. But the department's work is not finished. We will continue to find, arrest, prosecute, convict, and incarcerate criminals, drug traffickers, and their enablers wherever they are. the dark net is not a place to hide. We will use every tool we have to stop criminals from exploiting vulnerable people and sending so many Americans to an early grave perpetuated by a perverted technology. I want to thank our international partners at Europol and in Thailand, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, all of whom have worked closely with us to take down this criminal enterprise. And to all the Department of Justice law enforcement personnel at the Drug Enforcement Administration, the FBI, and to those from the IRS, criminal investigators, and the attorneys and staff, all of whom who worked tirelessly on this case, you have made us proud. You have made this country safer, and we thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you, Attorney General Sessions. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. I'm grateful to our law enforcement agents and prosecutors for the tireless work on this case, and to our international partners for their extraordinary cooperation. The AlphaBay case is part of a larger international effort to attack dark web marketplaces that broker criminal transactions. Their alleged criminal conduct includes selling illegal drugs like fentanyl and heroin, as well as stolen fraudulent identification documents and access devices, counterfeit goods, malware and computer hacking tools, firearms, and toxic chemicals. This was a coordinated international operation against AlphaBay and also another website known as Hansa Market, which the Dutch authorities have been investigating and shut down earlier today. As part of this operation, the two sites' administrators were arrested, and authorities seized extensive evidence and illicit assets related to those enterprises. Now, this case started with several independent investigations, and we had the assistance of our law enforcement agencies who are represented here, as well as several U.S. attorneys' offices around the country. We joined together and worked with our partners to coordinate the timing of the takedown of these websites. The AlphaBay takedown and the arrest of its administrator could not have happened without the unwavering support of our international partners. I think that's one of the highlights of this case today. We worked with law enforcement authorities in Thailand, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Canada, the United Kingdom, and France, along with support from Europol. We're going to hear from our Europol director, Rob Wainwright, this morning. Our foreign partners conducted searches, seized evidence and proceeds of criminal activities, and made an arrest. Now, there were many moving parts to this investigation. Alleged members of the conspiracy used anonymizing techniques in trying to conceal their identities and their locations. Peeling back one layer after another took us to new countries where we needed additional assistance from other law enforcement agencies. And with each development in the case, our international colleagues expressed an immediate willingness to assist. Dark websites like AlphaBay and Hansa run on what's known as the Tor network. They're hidden services designed to conceal information that could reveal the identity or location of the website and its customers. So people using these websites believe that they're going to be anonymous. But this case demonstrates that is not always true. Many dark websites openly trade in narcotics, guns, images of sexual abuse of children, and other serious criminal conduct. An academic study published in 2015 found that the largest single category of hidden services on the Tor network was forums for the sale of drugs and contraband. It also found that 80% of traffic to hidden services related to sexual exploitation of children. Now, some sites have membership of hundreds of thousands of users across the globe. Those disturbing statistics explain why disrupting and dismantling dark websites is a priority for the Department of Justice, and international coordination is critical to our success. Administrators and users of dark websites use anonymizing techniques to thwart law enforcement activities. But our agents, our prosecutors, analysts, and support staff work tirelessly to locate the infrastructure hosting the sites and to identify the people responsible for them. These methods prove an ongoing challenge for us. Hundreds of sites on the Tor network still enable a vast amount of criminal activity to occur. But we are proud of the accomplishments that we announced today, and we recognize our work is not done. We face many challenges, and we need international assistance to overcome those challenges. The exceptional foreign cooperation with our operation to attack illegal activity on the dark web demonstrates that international partners stand in solidarity with us to deny safe havens to cybercrime. That helps us to protect the privacy, the safety, and the security of all Americans. And one other development I want to bring to your attention, which is that following the death of the defendant who's charged in the American case, our U.S. Attorney in Eastern California, Phil Talbert, yesterday filed a civil forfeiture complaint, which will ensure that appropriate action is taken with regard to all the assets that were seized in the course of that investigation. This time I want to introduce the Acting Director of the FBI, Andy McCabe.
Good morning, everyone. As the Attorney General noted, this is a landmark operation. AlphaBay was roughly 10 times the size of the Silk Road. So we're talking about multiple servers in different countries, hundreds of millions of dollars in cryptocurrency, and a darknet drug trade that spanned the globe. It takes a whole lot of coordination and a shared purpose to pull off an operation like this. So with your patience, I'd like to thank a few of the folks without whom we would not be here today. First, I'd like to thank the FBI's Sacramento field office, who took the laboring oar in making this operation a success. I'd also like to thank our folks in the Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Chicago field offices, as well as the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division here at headquarters, the Cyber Division, and our legal attaché offices overseas. These teams did amazing work, but we're under no illusion that we do this kind of work on our own. We are extremely grateful to our partners in Thailand and the Netherlands, Lithuania, Canada, the UK, France, as well as our partners in Europol. We especially want to thank our Dutch partners for their amazing work taking down the Hansa website, to which many of the AlphaBay users and vendors flocked after the demise of AlphaBay. Taking down 2 major darknet sites at once is considerable, and it took a lot of effort, a lot of expertise, and a lot of teamwork. And as this level of teamwork and coordination shows, we will go to the ends of the earth to find these people and to stop them. There are some criminals that think of cybercrime as a freebie. They think they'll get away with it because there are too many players in too many countries. They think they'll get away with it because the schemes are too complex and because they operate in the shadows. But we are blending traditional investigative techniques and new tools to bring these individuals out of the shadows and into the light. The FBI's high-tech organized crime unit targets criminal enterprises that conduct traditional criminal activity, like money laundering and the sale of illicit goods, through computers and the internet. Together with folks from the Cyber Division, the Violent Crime, and Crimes Against Children programs, we're working to fill that gap, the gap between computer intrusions that target our data and technology and traditional crime facilitated by technology, like the darknet. This team worked diligently to identify the location of the AlphaBay infrastructure and to identify the administrator and to shut down the site for good. Now, critics will say, as we shutter one site, another site emerges. And they may be right, but that is the nature of criminal work. It never goes away. You have to constantly keep at it, and you've got to use every tool in your toolbox. And that's exactly what we'll do. We've learned a lot over the years about taking down international criminal syndicates, and that same experience applies to organizations that are facilitated on the dark net. We know that removing top criminals from the infrastructure is not a long-term fix. There's always a new player waiting in the wings, ready to fill those shoes. It's like demolishing a building. Hacking away at individual walls and beams only does so much, but using federal statutes to prosecute these individuals is akin to blowing up the foundation with dynamite. Once the infrastructure implodes, it becomes difficult for the group to function. And with the weight of this kind of operation, the organization crumbles. So we will keep doing this great work. And we'll continue to count on our federal counterparts and our international partners to be right here with us. And now I'd like to turn it over to one of our absolute closest partners and best colleagues from the Drug Enforcement Administration, Robert Patterson, Acting Deputy Administrator. Robert.
And good morning. I'm pleased to represent the DEA and join my other federal law enforcement colleagues in announcing the AlphaBay network takedown. Extremely dedicated investigators, analysts, and prosecutors work to make this possible. I greatly appreciate the larger collaborative efforts of all our other federal partners, including the FBI, IRS, United States Postal Inspection Service, and Homeland Security. As Director McCabe just noted, these cases demand international collaboration, and cooperation. We are grateful for the work of our fellow law enforcement partners in Thailand, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, and obviously Europol. As we are all sadly reminded on a daily basis, our nation continues to face an opioid epidemic. The dark web is an available and seemingly anonymous marketplace for the sale of these drugs. The DEA continues to be fully committed to addressing this epidemic. We are attacking the problem from multiple angles, from the traditional enforcement efforts targeting the major sources outside our borders that feel untouchable, to their networks that bring the drugs across our borders into this country, to the violent street gangs that sell the deadly poison in our local neighborhoods, and to the corrupt doctors and rogue pharmacies involved in the diversion of prescription drugs. Although the business models of these groups vary, they are all similar when it comes to the destruction they cause. And they all share one additional common characteristic. They operate on borrowed time. The AlphaBay criminal network, led by Alexander Casas, was yet another contributing source feeding this epidemic, supplying countless addicts through direct sales and supplying drug traffickers across this country and others with larger quantities for redistribution. AlphaBay was the largest dark market platform operating on the dark web. It was responsible for approximately $1 billion in illicit sales, a significant portion which came as the result, as already stated, from proceeds of the sale of drugs like fentanyl and heroin. And as the Attorney General brought up, more than 250,000 listings for illegal drugs were on that site at the time it was taken down. The dark web seemingly allows for anonymity and creates extraordinary challenges for law enforcement. But as we have demonstrated in this case, these challenges are not insurmountable. Alexander Casas learned what so many others have. Hard work and determination by our law enforcement and law enforcement partners demonstrate yet again no one is untouchable. Collectively, we will continue to leverage our legal authorities and capabilities with a continued determination to identify and target criminals wherever they may hide, which includes cyberspace. We are keenly aware there'll be another AlphaBay, but with each investigation we learn more and get better. We will aggressively continue to pursue these attempting to hide behind the anonymity of the dark web. I'd like to specifically thank the dedicated men and women of the DEA and our partner law enforcement agencies for their incredible work on this particular operation, and to the many federal prosecutors who work tirelessly every day to bring these criminals to justice to protect our citizens. And with that, I'd like to introduce Europol Director Rob Markwing.
Thank you very much, and I'm the final speaker, so we'll hold your attention just for a few minutes more, if I may. Thank you to the Attorney General and colleagues of the DOJ for inviting me to be part of this event today, and we're very pleased at Europol to have played our part in coordinating the international dimensions of this groundbreaking operation, especially in Europe. As you've heard, this outstanding law enforcement action here in the United States to bring to an end AlphaBay was coordinated with simultaneous action in Europe against another major criminal marketplace known as the Hansa market. The shutting down of that, the Dutch authorities are announcing right now in the Netherlands at their own press conference. These two cases have been developed together, and our joint hit on both of these dark marketplaces is one of the most sophisticated law enforcement operations against cybercrime that we've ever seen. So the scale speaks for itself. You've heard the figures already. But AlphaBay and Hansa between them were the two of the top three criminal marketplaces on the dark web, trading hundreds of thousands of illicit commodities, drugs, and many others, the details of which you've already heard about. That's 40,000 vendors, depending on the marketplaces, to sell everything from fentanyl to illegal firearms and malware for cybercrime attacks. So their coordinated takedown has, I think, punched a big hole in the operating ability of drug traffickers and other serious criminals around the world. But what made this operation really special was the strategy we ran to magnify the disruptive impact of the joint actions. Between Europol, the FBI, DEA, and the Dutch police, the team play that we ran here was to take covert control of the Hansa market under Dutch judicial authority a month ago, which allowed us to monitor the activities, criminal activities of users without their knowledge, and then shut down AlphaBay during the same period. So what this meant in particular was that we could identify and disrupt the regular criminal activity that was happening on Hansa market, but then also sweep up all those new users that were displaced from AlphaBay and looking for a new trading platform for their criminal activities. And in fact, they flocked to Hansa in their droves. We recorded an 8 times increase in the number of new users on Hansa immediately following the takedown of AlphaBay. And since the undercover operation to take over Hansa market by the Dutch police, the usernames and passwords of thousands of buyers and sellers of illicit commodities have been identified and are the subject of follow-up investigations by Europol and our partner agencies. So as a law enforcement strategy, therefore, leveraging the combined operational and technical capabilities of multiple agencies here in the United States and around Europe, it's been an extraordinary success and an illustration of the collective power we can bring as a concerted global law enforcement community to work against even the most challenging, serious criminal enterprises. My respect and admiration goes to all of those involved here in the US, in the Netherlands, many other European countries, as well as many of my own colleagues in Europol. I think there are 3 other major implications in this operation. Firstly, as you've heard, the infrastructure of the underground criminal economy has taken a serious hit, and much, much bigger even than what we saw in 2013 with Silk Road. Secondly, the intelligence that we've yielded, especially through the monitoring of Hansa, has given us a new insight into the criminal activity of the darknet, including many of its leading figures. We've already distributed through Europol new intelligence leads connected with darknet to already 37 countries around the world. And finally, of course, as you've already heard, there's a very strong message here to those who engage in criminal activity on the internet, and the darknet especially, that you're not as safe and you're not as anonymous as you think you are. And this operation is an example of the improving concerted ability of law enforcement to strike against criminals, even on the darknet. At Europol, we're standing up a new international team to monitor darknet marketplaces in the future. And what we've seen today from this coordinated hit against these 2 marketplaces is just a taste of what's to come in the future. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a few questions. Sari.
Attorney General Sessions, this is not really a normal day. The President made very disparaging remarks about you, Attorney General of the United States, and your Deputy Attorney General yesterday. Given what he said, what is your reaction to those remarks, and how seriously are you considering possibly resigning?
We in this Department of Justice will continue every single day to work hard to serve the national interest, and we wholeheartedly join in the priorities of President Trump. He gave us several directives. One is to dismantle transnational criminal organizations. That's what we're announcing today, the dismantling of the largest dark website in the world by far. And I congratulate our people for that. I have the honor of serving as Attorney General. It's something that goes beyond any thought I would have ever had for myself. We love this job, we love this department, and I plan to continue to do so as long as that is appropriate.
Pamela.
Attorney General Sessions, how do you feel like you can effectively serve from here on out if you don't have the confidence of the President?
We're serving right now. The work we're doing today is the kind of work that we intend to continue. Just last week, we announced the largest healthcare takedown ever in the United States. We had all the major law enforcement leaders in my office yesterday to talk about our unified efforts to improve our crime fighting with state and local officials. So I'm totally confident that we can continue to run this office in an effective way. But I really would like for you to focus now on the work of the individuals behind me that have helped put this case together, so that we can celebrate and affirm the work that they have done, so that we can learn from it and get even better in the future.
Thank you. Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, the President told the New York Times yesterday that the fact that you're from Baltimore concerns him, since there aren't many Republicans from that city. Is that something that's a valid concern in your view? What do you make of that criticism?
As the Attorney General said, we are working here every day to advance the priorities of the Department of Justice and the administration. I was proud to be here yesterday. I'm proud to be here today. I'll be proud to work here tomorrow. And we are spending every minute working to advance the interests of the department. And as the Attorney General said, we're happy to answer any questions about this AlphaBay case. It's a very important case. We got a lot of folks here who assisted in that investigation, and that's all I'm going to talk about today.
Do you have any questions about AlphaBay? All right, thank you.
It's not about AlphaBay. Are you concerned you'll be seen as a zombie Attorney General?
Attorney General, you will not resign. Attorney General Sessions, will you not resign?
Was the
Attorney General Sessions.
Okay, we are just concluding a press conference held by the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, also attended by the Deputy Attorney General Ron Rosenstein and the acting FBI Director there, Andrew McCabe. If you will, those are three people mentioned in that New York Times interview President Trump gave yesterday, where he was critical at varying times of all three of those individuals. Now, this press conference was previously scheduled. It was called to announce the takedown of a dark website known as AlphaBay, taken down, well, they didn't exactly say when recently, but the administrator of this dark website, AlphaBay, they had mentioned that 40,000 vendors were accused of selling illegal commodities on that website, including illegal drugs. But of course, given the president's remarks in that extraordinary New York Times interview yesterday, the focus of the questions afterward directed to those officials, including the Attorney General, had to do with the comments that the president made that if he had known that Jeff Sessions, as Attorney General, would recuse himself from the investigation into allegations about alleged contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian officials, he would not, essentially saying he would not have hired Jeff Sessions for that job. So he was questioned a number of times about that. I want to bring in Rick Klein, our political director, here to talk about that extraordinary interview that I referred to and the Attorney General's remarks there, one of which was he said that I have the honor of serving as Attorney General. We love this job. We love this department, and we'll continue to do so as long as it is appropriate. Rick, what do you make of that "as long as it's an appropriate" comment, and in general his comments in reaction to those comments by the president about him yesterday?
This is a surreal moment, Ron. I mean, those are the nation's top three law enforcement officials. President Trump criticized each of them by name and for different reasons in this interview, questioned whether he should have even named Jeff Sessions, questioned whether Rod Rosenstein is actually a Democrat because of where he's from and not knowing much about him, and questioning McCabe for his wife's connections to Democratic politics. That's extraordinary. And to have those three officials up there today, two of them asked on camera if they plan to still serve and say yes and pretend like nothing extraordinary just happened yesterday. I mean, wow. To me, the most interesting part was Jeff Sessions saying, we are here behind the Trump agenda. That, to me, was a message to the president himself, who you know is watching this because of how he consumes news as it develops, and also to people in his own department that say you can't focus on what's being said on the outside, even if it's coming from the boss, coming from the president himself. Focus on the work. And to try to keep your nose down in these circumstances has got to be unbelievably difficult.
Did you catch that at the very end as they were leaving? Somebody shouted out to the Attorney General, are you a zombie Attorney General? Which he did not reply to. But let's take that seriously here. How can the Attorney General continue in that role and be effective? He said he could when the president, for whom he serves, is making comments like that amazing comment to the New York Times yesterday.
I think it's important to remember who Jeff Sessions is in the Trump orbit. Jeff Sessions was the first senator in the nation to endorse Donald Trump's candidacy. You can make an argument Donald Trump would not be president without Jeff Sessions. One of his top aides went into the White House. Stephen Miller became one of the closest advisors to the president. That was a connection made by Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions vouched for candidate Trump when a lot of Republicans were skeptical. He is as loyal is. And he was, in naming to this role and confirmed by the Senate, seen as someone who would be a very loyal foot soldier for the Trump army. We know based on our reporting that things have gotten so tense behind closed doors that Jeff Sessions actually did tender his resignation at one point, or offered to resign, I should say, to the president, and the president didn't take him up on that. That was a statement by itself. He is now, it seems to me, telling the president, look, I understand the message delivered, and I'm going to continue to do my job. There was no attempt to assert himself as an independent agent in this. That, to me, was saying, I get it. This is the boss. We're going to continue to do it. Same for Rod Rosenstein, who's come under criticism for his handling of the Comey matter, among other things, saying he was proud to work yesterday, proud to work here today, and proud to work here tomorrow. Of course, this has been an extraordinary couple of hours to work at the Department of Justice, but the message from those officials is the work goes on, and at least publicly, they're not betraying any second guessing about whether they should stay in their roles.
But Rick, as a practical matter, even if he were inclined to do so, how could the Attorney General or Ron Rosenstein assert their independence even subtly without effectively saying, fire me?
No, I guess that's it. I mean, I've seen commentary, including from Preet Bharara, the former U.S. Attorney for New York, who was fired by President Trump before James Comey and shortly after President took office. He said this is essentially a challenge to Jeff Sessions to resign, or asking for a resignation. And I know our own colleague Dan Abrams believes that a resignation is almost inevitable in a circumstance like this. But I think for Jeff Sessions, who again has been loyal to President Trump for so long, I think you're right. He viewed it as you have to choose what side you're on. He is still siding with Team Trump. And that, to me, sends a message. I've got to think that it affects employees of the Department of Justice and the FBI to know that the big bosses are being called out so publicly and without any precedent that I know of, Ron, and still stay in that job. That is a message in itself.
But has not, I guess it's kind of a leading question when I start off, has not. But we've seen previously that top aides, confidants of the president, have fallen in and out of favor. Steve Bannon, for example, was believed to be on the rocks a few months ago. I mean, it's possible, it's volatile, if I can use that word, the president is, that while Jeff Sessions is on the out now, he could return to the graces of the president, isn't it?
Yes, but the difference is this is not a White House advisor serving in an appointed role. This is the Attorney General of the United States. This is the Deputy Attorney General of the United States. This is the acting director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. These are big jobs, and actually they are different than just about any other job in government, because you don't work specifically, even though the command structure goes up through the president and the unitary executive branch, they don't work specifically for the president of the United States. They're not the president's lawyers. They're not the president's FBI. They work on behalf of the people of the United States. They are the top law enforcement officials of the nation. And it's a weird situation to be in. When you're called out like this, you still report up to him. You have to maintain a degree of independence. It's a lot different than being an aide, an advisor, someone who serves at the pleasure of the president. They are confirmed by the United States Senate, and they are in roles that are supposed to be above politics, and even in some cases separate from the White House. That's why Attorney General Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. That's why the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein recused himself from the Russia investigation. They passed it down because they felt like their independence could not be questioned. The president is saying that was all a mistake. And it was more than a warning shot. It was a body blow directly at the nation's top law enforcement officials.
Okay, we're going to wrap up here very quickly, but the body blow was going public with this, because I assume certainly the Attorney General must have known. I doubt the president has withheld his opinion that he should have recused himself, and that he's being, I think his words were, unfair to him by not recusing himself. So the body blow is what? The fact that he went public with these extraordinary feelings toward Jeff Sessions?
In my view, yes. Look, there's nothing new or unexpected about a president being frustrated with a cabinet secretary, even an attorney general, with certain actions. He is not going to agree with everything that his cabinet does in going through the motions and running through their agencies. But the idea of going public with that and saying publicly he wouldn't have even named Sessions if he knew about the recusal, that to me is a severe message to the independence and undercutting and undermining of the independence of the Department of Justice. And the other part that we haven't talked about is that there was, of course, in that interview, a direct message to Bob Mueller that you better stay in your lane. And the president trying to define what that lane is, saying if you go too far into his own personal finances, that in his view is crossing a red line. That's not how it works. Bob Mueller knows that's not how it works. So that was a message that if you go that far, I'll fire you. And that would have to be a firing that would be executed by Rod Rosenstein, who has said under oath that he wouldn't execute that if he felt like there wasn't very good reason, and he saw no reason for that. So the president is coming very close to a constitutional crisis when he starts criticizing the nation's law enforcement officials like this publicly, in addition to whatever he says privately.
I'm going to end here with the question that was shouted out to the Attorney General as he left that he did not answer. For you, Rick Klein, is Jeff Sessions a zombie Attorney General now?
Zombies can walk around for a while, right? I don't know the exact science on zombies. Look, if he decides, and according to his public comments today, that he wants to remain loyal to this president, and if his official and unofficial watchword is I'm going to execute the Trump agenda, he can stay as Attorney General for as long as he wants. The Congress isn't going to try to remove him from office. He can continue to do that job. The job may be a lot different. It may be a zombie job, but he can stay in that role for as long as he chooses. I'm just struck by the loyalty that Jeff Sessions continues to show, by all accounts, publicly and privately to this president, and how it was repaid in that interview. The president going out of his way to criticize Jeff Sessions in this New York Times article, also criticizing his number two, also criticizing his acting FBI director, going down the list, despite the fact that these men seem to be trying to do their best to enact his agenda. You can't point to anything publicly or even privately that you say this is an attempt to undercut or this is at odds with what the president wants, other than this recusal, which according to Jeff Sessions, he was forced into because of the nature of this circumstance. These are loyal guys, and the president is attacking them anyway.
I think a lot of people are going to look at this as the president humiliating Jeff Sessions and Sessions basically taking it.
Taking it, yeah. And look, you hear it from people that have worked for Trump for a long time. You have to let the boss blow his top, and you have to take the beating sometimes. This is different, again, because of who these men are, because of the forum, because of the fact that this was done publicly in an interview like this. The president seemed to know exactly what he was doing in sending this very public message, a shot across the bow to just about all of the nation's major law enforcement establishment.
At the same time, the health care bill is at a critical juncture, interestingly enough.
Speaking of zombies, that bill is still around, Ron, you're right.
All right, ABC News political director Rick Klein, one of the biggest brains in the world of politics, somebody I believe and trust in. Hey, Rick, thanks very much for joining us. And again, we're just concluding coverage of the Attorney General Jeff Sessions press conference, officially there to announce a takedown in the dark web, a supplier of illegal armaments. On that dark web, the takedown of that organization known as AlphaBay and its administrator. Most of the questions, of course, focused on the president's comments critical of Jeff Sessions yesterday in an extraordinary interview with the New York Times. This is Ron Claiborne. Thanks for joining us.